Another episode of NRG Insights. And for those that don't know, so we speak to influential people and people that can add value to the industry, whether that be across mortgages, specialist lending, and like today, the kind of ancillary products around us, whether that be come from the marketing or today legal. So today I'm joined by Anastasia, who is the CEO and founder of ILA. Thanks for joining me, Anastasia.
How are you? You all right?
I'm good. So let's start with just talk to me about your kind of journey, if you like, through to where you are now as chief of ILA.
Sure. So, take a rewind. Started out in law. I don't know, how old am I? 33. No one asked that, but just so you want to know, I'm 33. So I think I got into law just straight from school. I went to university, did a law degree, the standard way you get into it, and then I qualified into banking and finance. That was my background. I'd always wanted to be a lawyer. Actually, there's like a little memoirs from when you're a kid, and I think I was 8, and I wrote something, and it was like, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer because I want to help people, and I want one of those cars with doors that go up and down. I think I was thinking about is it a Lambo?
The Goldwing doors, yeah.
Yeah, I do help people, but I don't have a Lambo, so
You can get that on a Tesla now, so you could be eco-friendly and still get those Goldwing doors.
I'm too disorganized for a Tesla, but I'd break down everywhere. So that's yeah. So I always wanted to do law, got into law, qualified, like cutting the long story short, but qualified into banking and finance, where I actually used to sue banks for things like fraud, misconduct, negligence. So if you think of like the LIBOR rigging claims, I used to work on those, swaps, collars, caps, any sort of dodgy banking behavior. And there was a time when there was
I know someone well who works on the other side who just tries to reduce the fines for banking. I was like, you're the worst corporate lawyers in the world. You are. You guys are trying to get hidden pension money and stuff. And he's like, my whole job is basically trying to reduce. Like, that seems like a 200 million seems a bit harsh. Maybe 160, and that's his job, is to reduce the punishments for the banks. That's a tough corporate gig.
Yeah, so I always acted for the small guys. I love an underdog story. So I always acted for property developers. Primarily, like global, I don't know if you heard about RBS, Global Restructuring Group. RBS was smashing up property developments, taking all the assets. I won't get too far into that. But I've always acted for the property developer or the small guy against the banks. I was often asked, would you go to the dark side? Absolutely not. Sorry, my banking friends, but at that time, no. Yeah. So that's where I started off. And once I'd qualified, I was working at a law firm. I actually am from Dorset. Well, I was born in London, but I lived in Dorset at the time. And then I went up to a law firm in Southampton. It was really at the time. Funny, anybody who's visually watching this, how I'm dressed right now. I used to be in killer heels, suits, blazers. Like, I loved it. I was like, look at me, I'm a lawyer, that kind of vibe. And so was really following that kind of corporate journey. And then I actually had this kind of life epiphany. At the time, I'd gone to a firm in Southampton, which was a city firm, and I was having panic attacks at the time. So I speak quite openly about a lot of these things. There's nothing really you can't ask me. And at the time I was having these panic attacks and was like, nothing's wrong with me. Which, if we want to get into that, we can chat about that some more. But started kind of on this hypnotherapy journey, the spiritual journey, unearthing things that, particularly people in like business, finance, law just don't look at. They don't want to look at that stuff, right? So started that, and then at the time I launched a wellbeing retreat company, and I went to the partner at the law firm and said, hey, this really changed my life. I want to launch this wellbeing retreat to help other people like me. And he was like, Anastasia, we all know you're really good at business development. You're really good at bringing in work. And that sounds like you want to do more of that. And I was like, no. This isn't bringing in work. This is helping people. He was like, Anastasia, you're just a bit of a square peg in a round hole, which for anyone who doesn't know what that means, it means you don't fucking fit in around here, you're not part of our crew.
It's not billable hours. They're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. You're a bit weird, And I was like, okay. So I handed my notice in. There's a point to this story. I handed my notice in. I then was I was like 27 and handed my notice in, became a consultant solicitor. Remember my mum at the time saying to me, don't tell your dad love, all this hard work. And I just blown out the wall, like sod them, and became a consultant solicitor. I was also doing consultancy work for a brokerage at the time, helping them with their business development because that's something I'm good at, and kept hearing people calling us like, I said, I need ILA, I need ILA. Obviously, I'm a banking lawyer, so I was like, cool, I can do ILA. And then I'd hear the brokerage, we can't complete because we need ILA. And I was like, what is this problem that no one's doing anything about? Like, can no one hear what's happening here? And I actually am a co-founder, so I'm not sole founder, I'm a co-founder of ILA. So I said to my, I actually trained with Luke Baldwin. He's my co-founder. I trained with him as a lawyer for a long time. He was at the brokerage. I was like, we need to make a law firm that just does ILA, because no one's, this is nuts. This is huge. There's so much stuff to do here. And Googled it, and no one had ever done it. And law firms don't really have it on their website. And I was like, either this is a really bad idea, or I'm a genius.
Nailed a niche.
I'm not actually a genius. But you know what I mean? You're like, wow, what is that?
It is. It is when you look at like how, especially with law firms, it's such a small part of it, isn't it? But if you niche down into something, I mean, that's the same as any service, right? Whether it's recruitment, financial services, legal. You niche down into something, you become an expert at that one thing. That's all people come to you for. It's smart.
Yeah. So we kind of identified that gap, and actually, part of the story I often miss out, but actually it's a huge part of the story, is prior to COVID, ILAs could only be in person. So if I launched a law firm in Dorset doing ILAs in 2021, whenever COVID was 2022, wasn't it? So if I'd launched it in 2021, it would have been a load of rubbish. I would have been doing, a handful of developers in Poole. But COVID had just happened and ILAs had just started coming online. And I was like, if we launched this, we could service the whole world. And the banks were pushing more for limited, everyone was pushing more for limited companies. The developers were pushing more, and then the banks were pushing more for PGs. So I was like, this could be massive. I remember Luke saying to me, he's like, Anastasia, what if it goes back to in person? We're screwed. And I was like, but what if it doesn't go back to in person? Think of that, And it never did. And then we launched ILA in 2022.
There's genuinely no need to be face-to-face with people in this day and age for stuff like independent legal advice. You can have this conversation online.
Absolutely. A lot of the time it was the verification of like ID and stuff that people got their being the bonnet about. But again, I don't know anyone who's verifying ID in person and sending out terms of business in the post like by pigeon courier. We're not doing that anymore. My eyes as well can't see a fake passport compared to the AI automations that are scanning everything.
All the biometrics we use, and then we still have to go and show someone your passport. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't. It's not even any better. It's just lawyers being lawyers. So that was how it came about, and that's how we ended up here, I guess, as part of the piece of the puzzle of how we ended up here.
Amazing. And how did that grow from inception? Here's my idea. We need some clients. What was that journey like in the first couple of years?
Yeah, big and quick. Yeah.
Did it surprise you? Did you think like this is going to be huge, or did you just not know?
Do you know what? So people always ask me, Anastasia, like, you must have planned this, or a lot of the systems we use, they're like, how did you know about user interface something? And I'm like, oh, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. Like, I think people think I know all this stuff. I just do what I think makes sense. And apparently there's jazzy words for things. People are reading books on these things. And I'm just like, isn't that obvious? Like that you need to do something that's client friendly. Why is it called user interface experience? It's just common sense, right? So no, I didn't really know anything. I didn't know, I think I talk about a lot of the time. We spent $27,500 on a domain name. www.ila.co.uk was $27,500. We had no business. Well, that's what most people do, right? Most normal people do that. We had no business, no clients, no idea. We weren't SRA regulated. And I look back through chats and I'm like, if we're going to do it, we've got to do it big, right? So I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. I just had an idea that I thought it would be a good idea. And I think, to be honest, I look back and what was I, 28? I'm not sure at 33. I don't know where that riskiness came from. I don't know what that was. I am just as risky, to be honest. But it was just, I didn't know. No, I didn't know that. I didn't know what it was going to be. First year, we've now done 9,000 ILAs. That's a lot of ILAs. And
is that on both sides? So like your resi, like joint borrower, sole proprietor type stuff, and your commercial stuff, is it all across the boundaries? And are you hired by the broker side, or the lenders get you involved? Where your clients come from?
Yeah, good questions. So the areas we cover, are your specialist finance area, your bridging, your buy-to-lets. Then we've got the resi, which is your joint borrower, sole proprietor, gifts, transactional undervalues. That tends to be that. The specialist finance, I'd say, probably is bigger than the residential. But we also do something called litigation funding. So we do ILAs and litigation funding agreements. So that's when people are entering into or pursuing a dispute against somebody and they need funding for it. So we step in and provide ILA on that to make sure they understand the arrangements of the funding. And there's definitely more areas to tap into. So that's across those 3 areas. We also do like matrimonial litigation funding. That's with people. You don't hear me talk about that much because I'm usually in the property space.
The business, right?
Yeah. So those are the ones we do. And our introductions, or our biggest where we're getting our work from, is your brokers and your solicitors. So obviously they're the ones that are dealing with the transaction. The lender doesn't really get involved with the ILA side of it.
It's really useful for lawyers as well, right? Because you can't give independent if you're working for someone, and this is a firm that only does that. So you're not sat on someone's waiting list for 10 weeks while they deal with other shit, right? You're top of the list.
Yeah, so a lot of law firms aren't allowed to, either the lender won't allow the same lawyer or the same law firm to do the ILA, because fundamentally it's then not independent because they're benefiting from the transaction. There's still lawyers that do it, or lenders that allow it, but
is that just someone else in the firm? Because surely that is well, not my place to say.
It is. They usually do it somebody else in the firm. Yeah, someone else in the firm. But fundamentally, if I was to strip that back, if the firm is getting paid £1,000 to do the bridging transaction, the firm is then getting paid to do the ILA. So it's the same underlying beneficiary. The lawyers are. It doesn't make sense to me unless it was a consultant model where all the consultants were self-employed, for example. Different. So either lenders won't allow it, or sometimes the firms have their own internal policy not to do it that way. And then also the reason why it really works for us is because we don't do any other area of law. We don't compete with lawyers, so they're not running the risk of sending it to.
We're not clients,
exactly, not still their clients. If anything, there's a cross-referral relationship going on. So yes, lawyers and brokers are our biggest source of work or referral network.
Amazing. And how did you build up that network? How did you build? Obviously, you're incredible online and stuff, but how did you build up from the beginning? From having 0 brokers, say, how did you start?
I actually posted about this on my Instagram a couple of days ago to talk about the online presence. In that, I actually only restarted online on like Instagram really like 6 months ago. Before that, it was like my own page where I posted like me and my mates having a laugh. I never used it for business. And then LinkedIn, although probably everyone thinks, God, I know Anastasia from LinkedIn, I've actually only really been using that consistently. And even then, I'm not consistent. Like I haven't posted for the last 2 days. I probably won't post today now, and then I'm away next week doing yin.
What is it? Was it 2% of people post? So if you miss 2 days, it's still consistent. There's not lots of lawyers posting every day.
No, and I probably haven't been doing that even for the last year. So ILA launch is now in its 3rd year. So I think the biggest thing I started with was just, I'm about to say the word, but I hate it. Like, is it pressing flesh? People say, oh, that gives me the ick of it. But doing that, I'd be at events every event. I would take people out for dinner. I think I read somewhere, and I can't remember. It was some sort of famous CEO, and it's like if I had like £100 left, I'd use that to take someone out for food. Use that for connecting. Yes. And I think so. My biggest thing to start with was I was always at events. I was sponsoring events. I'd just be present everywhere. The online presence was secondary.
You have to spend a fair bit of cash before you start getting cash in, because I know it's gone from, it's gone massively successful over the last 3 years. But even like domain name and initially kicking off, you're spending a fair few quid without knowing it's a success yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. But ILA has
people don't see that side. That's why I like to get into it, because you're like, oh, cool. It probably didn't cost you much to start, and you're like, well, it cost me 27 bags before I even got going just for the name. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I think it's important. There's no even financial questions. I'm never guarded about it. I'll talk about any of it. So I was in about, before I started ILA, I was in about £30,000 worth of debt myself. I'm now not in debt at all. I'm debt free, which is amazing. But I was in a lot of debt. Aren't most people though, right? Like, everybody is. I think it was just really important to me, I think, because I had such a bad relationship with debt growing up. So I think that's why it was really important to me. I kind of screwed myself over so many times, because I think when I was, just as a side trap, when I was qualifying as a solicitor, at the age of 25, I was on like 14,000, because when you're a solicitor trainee, you get paid so bad. And I'm showing my age a bit because that's, I mean, it's must be about 17,000, but I don't think that's like minimum wage anymore these days.
24 now.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I, at the time, really struggled with the concept of like, I'm a lawyer, and a lot of lawyers come from money. I don't come from money. My family came over from Cyprus. They didn't have anything. They worked their way up. So I didn't come from money. So I think I tried to, I remember, I think I was like 25, and I went and got an Audi TT, and it cost me at that time maybe like 22 grand. And my dad was like, "You're an idiot. That's more than your annual salary." I couldn't understand. Yeah, I was like, "But I'm a lawyer, Dad," and I couldn't, and to be honest, I couldn't understand like why all these other lawyers had all this money and they come from money, and that was hard. So, I know it's like poor you, but I found that hard, right? So, I was in a lot of debt when I started ILA, and so it wasn't like we had this money sat around. So like Luke had maybe a bit more money spare, so he scrabbled together what he could. He didn't
have the Audi TT. That was the magic.
What did he? He had a Mercedes, I think. Yeah, but but he's always been really sensible with money. Again, as our co-founder partnership, Luke's very like, I'm very risque, I'm very outrageous, whereas Luke's a bit more grounded, so it works really well. So anyway, he put some money in to help us to get that off the ground. We actually had no external investment. We didn't take external investment. So Isla's doesn't have that, which is something we're also very proud of. And it was one of those things that we bought the domain name. Yes, that's right. But then otherwise, we kind of drip fed things back through. So like, what else would we had our systems and process, the CRM systems that we use. And then I think I moved back home with my mum and dad. So I was 29, 28, 29 at the time. I moved back home with my mum and dad, and that's pay rent. So I had to move things around in my life. You also can't necessarily do it all. I couldn't afford rent. My partner at the time, then maybe supported us a bit more financially. Luke was still a consultant somewhere else, so he was getting income. Do you see what I mean? You have to. I actually mentor business owners now a lot of times on the startup part, and it's like a game of chess. You've got to move things strategically, otherwise you'll fuck it. Otherwise you won't have the money, you won't be able to stick it out, and you don't need to have bags of money laying around.
When you have a crack at something, that's a great time to do it. Like now, I've got 4 children and a big mortgage. If I suddenly wanted to, do a startup or something else, there's so many mother commitments. I have to earn a certain amount now. Whereas if you're in your 20s and you're thinking about it, it just seems like a really good time to have a crack. And you can fail 5 or 6 times before you actually have to get it right.
Right, exactly that, exactly. And I think, there are definitely other factors to consider. Like you said, the more things you layer on, the more you've got to consider it, right? But we didn't have huge amount of money laying around, and no, we didn't need it when because what we did is we strategically I was also still doing a bit of consultancy work at another law firm, so we slowly kind of weighed the scales, and as it grew, again, I speak openly about this, but year 1 it turned over 360,000. In year 2 we turned over 1.26 million. It just, and you look at it and you're like, whoa,
when did you look at it? When was the day when you look at it and went, oh shit, that works?
I don't know. I remember the first time, you sat in the office and you've launched a business, and I was like, waiting for the phone to ring.
Where's the money?
What do we do now? The phone rings. Everyone's like, the phone's ringing. And then I don't really remember. Some of it feels like a blur. Like I talk about this as well, being like, celebrating us, and it's amazing what we did. But there's some of it is an emotional blur, because also sometimes you get the success, and then there's a fear that kicks in of like, well, when you have hope in humanity is the thing that keeps us going. When you kind of get to where you never thought you were going to get, and you're sitting here, you're like, now what? And that kind of other emotional feeling kind of kicks in, so it all becomes a bit of a blur around the time that it was like really scaling. And
the exciting bit when you're scaling is super exciting, isn't it? It's the bit where it's steady, especially for a lot of entrepreneurs I speak to. Like, it's not a boredom thing, it's kind of just an emptiness, because you're just doing all right, everything's working. So unless you're scaling, it's quite tough, isn't it? Because you're clearly like risk averse. Oh, sorry, the opposite of risk averse. You have to take the risk. So it's it's a weird time, isn't it? It's a weird time when things are steady. I speak to so many people, and that's like CEOs of specialist lenders and stuff, are the same thing. Like, if they're not growing or kind of back up against the wall, they struggle a little bit. They struggle with it mentally.
Yeah, and I think it's quite a toxic trait of entrepreneurs in a nice way possible. I've read before, it's like the thing that gets you to the top will probably be the same thing that kills you, because, or not actually physically kills your business, because you can't just be with it. It's kind of like it's almost like you're either searching for something more, or you can't even just enjoy your success. And success doesn't have to be a 7-figure business. I didn't plan for that. It doesn't have to be that. It can be that you take home $5,000 a month and you're able to pay your bills and you have time with your wife or your husband. Whatever success is to you, that's still fantastic. It doesn't have to be that I take home $20,000 a month. It doesn't have to be any of those things. But we get to this place and we're like, whoa, now what? Or then you're almost like on defense, because you're like, well, now I've got to keep this, because now I've got here and I've got to keep it. When you're on the hope, you're like hoping tomorrow will be better and hoping tomorrow we achieve our goals. But when you get there, you're like, this is.
I get it's. I was speaking to a specialist lender the other day. Great business, like in funny enough, year 3, and he said I said, what keeps you awake at night? And he was like, God, good question. And he said, honestly, it's because we're doing all right. He said, everyone thought we would fail at the beginning. Like no one was doing what they were doing, international, different jurisdictions and stuff. And he's like, but now we're doing well, so I could lose it. Like if I fuck up tomorrow, I lose it all. Whereas before I had nothing to lose, and it's quite exciting.
Exactly. So you
get that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I said to I mentioned at the start, like obviously, I've started like a spiritual journey with hypnotherapy, and so I'm very, very, very into that now. I pay a lot for mentors. I'm here to do my yin teacher training, and a lot of that is, I work a lot on, what does success mean to you or to me, and I've done a lot so that it's not monetary, so that it's not ILA, because I'm not ILA. Freedom, time. So like I've now built my life so that, and then you can say, well, Anastasia, if you lost ILA, you wouldn't have freedom, you wouldn't have time. Not true, because I've now built my life so that my monthly outgoings, I could get a job in Tesco and cover my monthly outgoings. So actually what I did that on purpose so that.
Take on some of my kids. I could do that. If you could take on some of my children, then maybe I could work in Tesco.
I made a conscious decision not to have those. I mean, not forever, but right now, no. But I did the thing where when we first, I think year 2, I moved to Sandbanks, which is, for anyone who doesn't know Sandbanks, it's one of the most expensive areas to live probably in the world. Moved to Sandbanks.
Square footage is most expensive, overtaking Hong Kong, isn't it?
So the journey I kind of went on with it is I moved to Sandbanks. I lived right on Panorama Road, which is the road right in front.
Wow, yeah.
I bought a brand new Audi Q5, like brand new off the forecourt kind of thing. Then I had a BMW M4, had all this shit, right? And then I was like, wow, I'm really miserable, right? So I actually had all this stuff. And like your friend was saying, I was like, God, it doesn't matter whether Isla was earning me take home $50,000 a month or $20,000 or $100,000. I still had to produce in order to provide for this life that was costing me X amount. It doesn't matter to me. It didn't matter the gap between the outgoings, which some people say it's like, you want your outgoings to be lower than your ingoings, your income. Cool. But then you still got to produce to make $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month to facilitate this life, right? And I was just really fucking miserable. I was like, this isn't it. I believe you can live like 1,000 lifetimes in this life. So like I did that for a year and was like, nope, got it wrong. Let's try again.
At least you're aware of it, because it's very easy, especially financial services, right? There's a lot of dick swinging. There's a lot of 2 Range Rovers on lease, 3 kids in private school. So when it does get tougher, they can't really adjust. I don't think. I mean, obviously, like you said, you've been on a bit more of a spiritual journey, but that's not for every. That's not the same case in everyone in financial services. So I do see how people are miserable, but also can't get out of it,
right?
Because you've built a life that, like you said, you can't step out, because this is what you're accustomed to, and also it's shows.
Some of them like it, right? Whereas I was like, I don't like this. I'm stressed. I'm miserable. Earning more than I ever have dreamt of, but I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So all I did was I got rid of the cars, got rid of both the cars, got rid of the houses. Anybody watching it externally might have been like, shit, what's happening over there? Nothing was happening, and I couldn't care what you think. I couldn't care less. I couldn't give a monkey's.
That's what I was getting at.
I couldn't give a monkey's what you think, because my goal is for my life, my partner, and our to be happy. So I don't care if you're looking in going, oh my God, what's happened to Anastasia? Don't care what you think. Nothing's happened to me. It's none of your business. So we moved to the countryside. My rent a month now is like less than what people are paying for a 1-bed flat in town. I mean, I live in the middle of nowhere. Got rid of the cars. I have one car that's like an old banger that's paid outright that my partner uses for fishing, and then I changed the Audi. Like I said, if Isla blew up tomorrow, I could go get a job in a bakery So my life fundamentally would have changed.
That makes you so comfortable as well,
Free
like
and free.
internally, right?
That's freedom. So that's what it means to me. If anyone was to, to answer that question, I just don't care whether or not I love ILA, I love what it does, and I love the business, but my life isn't premised on its success. So if it's,
I think that's a really important thing to think about as well. Other people do it where, I mean, I'm the same. Like, I love my business, I love work, and I do enjoy like the making money side of it. But it's more like it's more about being an authority for me. I don't know where that comes from. Do you know what I mean? I want people to respect what I say because I know what I'm doing, and it comes from that. And the money is a result of it. But that can't be your only thing, right? Because as soon as that stops, it's like your life is say a chair, and it's got legs. The business is going to be one leg, can't it? Because if you haven't got the other bits and that falls apart, if you're a one-legged stool, you're done.
Spot on, right? And that's also kind of what I figured out when I was living in Sandbanks, and everyone was like, Anastasia ILA, Anastasia ILA, Anastasia, and I just was like, I am not my success, and as any business will have, we have months where we're like, woo, still. Yeah. We might end the year turning over 7 figures, right, whatever, but we have months where we're like, and then it goes back, and I'm like, shit, what happened? And everything's blowing up. We're losing work. We're not earning enough to like cover certain things. But obviously, because the other month's done really well, it all works out, right?
Yeah.
But that's entrepreneurship. So if my worth is attached to my business, I'm constantly going to feel like this about myself. And I'm not Isla. Yes, your business can be a reflection of parts of you. Again, I think sometimes business is one of the most deeply soul connecting things, because it can be a reflection of you and where you're at in your life and what you're, but equally
a lot of them are. If you look at the trickle down management of like great managers, not nice people, and then you look at the businesses, there is a trickle down from the type of person you are to how the business looks. So it is they are a reflection on you as well. But you're right, it's also not you.
Yeah, because you can also get people who are complete shits and their staff are complete shits, but they earn loads of money. So it's like, if you're attributing it to the fact, but you're right, it echoes, it mirrors them, absolutely. Yeah. But it means
it doesn't necessarily echo financially. That's
exactly.
Very successful products.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I'm just not good. And then that was the other thing. I was on this roller coaster ride with Isla, like where it's like when it went down, I went down. When it went up, and I just thought, I want to be me. And I made the last year, I made a conscious effort to be me outside of Isla, which is also why I show up as me. Like people like how you look and how you dress, how you speak. You shouldn't speak like that. You're a law firm owner. I'm Anastasia. And this is what Anastasia speaks and sounds like and looks like. I don't give a shit if you think I should look a certain way because I own a law firm.
A law firm owner,
yeah.
Do you not think that separates you from the crowd a bit as well? Like it kind of adds to your niche in the sense that you're not a blue suited bloke from a good school.
Yeah.
Do you think it makes a difference? Because people do want to work with you as well, right? I think a big part of success, and someone said this to me in Mipham, funnily enough, he goes, we really want you to succeed because we like you. And it never really dawned on me actually that the people you work with, you're desperately trying to let them succeed. That's what we do. But actually, it works the other way as well. If people like you and they like what you're about and you're authentic, people want you to succeed, don't they?
Yeah. Do you know what? Something that really got me is obviously last year, ILA won Best Specialist Finance Partner at the BNC Awards, which we just entirely didn't expect. Obviously, anyone who's seen the video, my face says it all.
I was sat just in front of you.
Yes.
I saw it.
Right. So what was amazing is afterwards, I actually didn't make my way once back to my seat. Because everybody, to be honest, people I had no idea who they were coming over to me like, we were rooting for you, we wanted you to win. And I was like, I remember getting home, after the night out, kind of sitting in my lounge, we'd got an Airbnb, and was like, wow, like I just felt so loved that people I've never met before who were like, we wanted you to win, and made the point of me coming over to me and saying that. And I just thought, like you said, it's people buy into that.
You just don't see it because people don't really tell you until you've won something or until you're having a one-to-one with them and they go, God, we like you. We really want you to do well. And it's a nice thing. I get that at trade shows and stuff, And the girls in the office take the piss out of me for it. They go, it's just an ego booster, but it's just nice. Like I have an inherent problem with wanting to be liked by everyone. I think if they don't, I'm like, I force myself on them until they like me. But also, they're like, it doesn't matter if people don't like what you do to our value. But I'm like, yeah, but I love that. I love it. I like it so much when someone comes up and goes, whatever you do for the industry is good. Like it's a nice thing, isn't it? You don't realise how many of them think that in the background until you are at events or shows and that kind of thing. It's just a good feeling.
Yeah, do you know what? Something I really noticed, I almost do it like a scientific experiment. So obviously I post on LinkedIn. A post might get 30 likes, say. And I'm turning up and I'm posting every day. And I'm not getting hundreds of likes every day at all, right? So I kind of post and get 20, 30 likes. But I always say, imagine 20, 30 people in front of you going, well done. That's great,
It's
right?
amazing. Yeah, yeah. 5 people were clapping you. It's incredible, isn't it?
Right. So then what's even more interesting is when I go to networking events, this is why I think also you need both, because you need both to almost mirror the other.
Yeah.
Without, again, this isn't a brag, this is just what happens. I go to MIPIM, I was at MIPIM and I was on my phone, someone stopped me and was like, I'm sorry, you must get this all the time, but like, you're Anastasia from mine, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I see you on LinkedIn, I love what you do. The amount of people coming over to me saying that, Anastasia, you
Lovely.
inspire me, but they were genuinely people, I'd ask their names, and I'd really look at who likes my stuff, only because I think it's nice to be aware of who's appreciating you.
Oh,
And I never have seen these people, like I've never seen their faces. And
yeah.
really what my point is that like, there's the reason why we need to go to these in-person events, as you say, is you'll have hundreds of people that might come over to you, be like, you inspire me, I love what you do, keep doing
You've
it.
never seen them.
But
And they've
they're
never
not
like
saying it
just.
on LinkedIn. They're not doing it on LinkedIn because I think it's
No, no.
really hard
Because
to,
95% of people are lurkers, aren't they? That's just the way it is.
right? Right. And
Yeah.
it's like, I would then almost come home from industry events being like, okay, people, I am doing the, I am on
Yeah,
track. And
yeah, yeah.
ego aside or not, you said, is it an ego thing that you were saying for yourself? But I don't think it is. I just think it's like feedback. We need feedback. Do you, as an entrepreneur, to keep turning up. I go on Instagram, and most days I'm on there talking, right? And
Yeah.
there's a few people who engage with me. I've got a little community of people who really engage with me. I've got an engaged community. I haven't got a big community. I've got an engaged
Yeah,
community.
yeah.
But you know what? It takes a lot. Whenever I see new entrepreneurs turning up and speaking on screen, I just think, well done you, because you don't know anyone's listening. You look a right knob, but
Yeah,
you've got to
yeah,
try.
yeah.
You've got to
And at the
try.
beginning, no one is.
No
So
one
you
is
just got to
listening.
keep going.
This is the thing, people think, I think, when we see Kim Kardashian, by the way, I don't follow any celebrities. I'm really like, I don't really care. But we see, I say all the time, like you see Kim Kardashian post it and all your mates and your family are like, yeah, Kim, we love you, Kim. I post and no one's liking it. But do you think Kim,
Where's Kim?
yeah, right? But people didn't start, I mean, she did start famous, and it was a bad example, but to get to the point where you've got a big crowd following you, you've got to start. Like, and yes, you look
Yeah,
silly,
yeah.
and yes, it feels silly, and your friends are like, or family, particularly your friends and family, a bit like,
All my mates take the piss out of me.
who does
Even
she
like,
is?
I
Yeah,
went to the rugby club the other day and they're like, oh, here comes Mr. LinkedIn. I'm like, that's how I speak to people at work.
yeah,
I can't speak to 10,000 people in an office.
yeah,
I go to London every week and I speak to 7. I post every day and I speak to 70,000. Like,
yeah.
I don't, and I'm happy they take the piss. Like, and they're not, they're only joking, but it's funny how people will go, oh God, you love it. I'm like, but it's part of my job. It's a big part of my job. It's
Yeah.
getting in front of people, trying to add value. It's huge.
Yeah, and I also think I've noticed there's no one who, if you're going to say it quite brashly, no one who's ahead of you, who's done that work, is laughing at you. Let's be honest. The only people who
Successful
are
people
laughing,
really want you to succeed, don't they?
absolutely.
Successful people love success. And I
Yeah,
think that, like with the podcast and stuff, that's why I don't have to pay anyone to come on it. Sorry to tell you that, but no one gets paid.
that's right.
But it's because successful people want to like give. That's where they are. I mean, obviously there's the exception of the very rich knobheads who don't want to help anyone.
Right. Yeah.
There was always going to be those, but generally, that people that are like you said, people that are above me in business, which I also love the fact that they share so much. They want you to do well, don't they?
I've never looked at someone's Instagram video of them talking and it sounds shit, the background shit, they're wearing shit out, whatever and been like, loser. I've actually been like, yes, like, well done you for starting. But there'll be some people who probably aren't doing it who are like, oh, look at them, that was a rubbish video. And that just is the way it is. But they've never done it, nor are they trying, so they can shut up. Something I always
A lot of
say,
people always give me advice about the podcast, and I'm like, oh, cool. Where's yours?
right?
And they're like, oh, I don't do one. Oh, right, because it's tough to do it every week. Actually, there's a lot more going into it, and I don't get paid for it. So thank you for your really useful advice on what I should do.
Do you know what, something I always say, and I think it's not an arrogance, but unless somebody is where I want to be or has something in their life that I admire or that I want, and that doesn't have to be business or monetary, it might be the way that they speak to their wife. And I'm like, do you know what? I love how they communicate with one another. If they don't have any of that, I don't care what you have to say. Because why don't want your opinion? Your opinion doesn't actually really matter to me.
I think it's really important, and it's going to get worse, right? Because obviously I've got teenage kids, so I see this all the time that they value people's opinions that don't mean anything.
No.
And also people love, like you said earlier on, if 5 people in front of you clapping, amazing, right? If it's face to face, much the same as all of the knobheads online would never say it to your face. They're not going to go, that was a shit post. All right, you stood in front of me. Like, you know what I mean? It gives people this like superiority thing where they go, right, I'm going to judge everyone. And I'm the same. We'll talk about it with my wife, and she says, like, why don't you care what people think? I'm like, they're just not important enough.
No,
like,
they're not.
Too many people's opinions. I take the opinions of people who I really, really value and are way more successful at the things that I want to be successful at, because they've done it. But everyone else, fuck them. It doesn't matter.
Exactly that.
So let's talk about the social media side of things, because you do nail it and you are very authentic. But was it conscious at the beginning of like is your strategy change? Is there a strategy to it? Because people think it's a bit made up, but I still know I have to post every day, and obviously I market the podcast, etc. So there is still an air of strategy, but at the same time, sometimes I just post shit that I think's funny.
Yeah.
Is there any strategy with you?
There's no strategy in any part of my life. I'm actually pure chaos. Like, everything about me is just chaos, but like that, I run with that now. Like, I just don't have a strategy for what I feel like posting that day. I don't know. I think sometimes that's why, like, if I look at Instagram, I think my algorithm's just screwed, because one day I'll post about business, one day I'll post about spirituality, one day I'll post about relationships, one day I'll post about, I don't know, someone mugging me off in a traffic jam. I don't know, anything I want to post about, you know? I don't have a strategy, but I also think that is a strategy to, like, I think when things are over rehearsed or over perfected, we can either never start. I see a lot of people who do that. They don't start because they want it to be perfect. They want a strategy.
Yeah. Or do that in the office with the 4,000 different video edits. I'm like, just chuck one on. I've never edited one. And if they're shit, people just scroll on. It's fine. It's it's the paralysis by analysis, isn't it? You're constantly looking, going, I could have done that bit better, but no one's looking that closely either.
Exactly. And most of them aren't posting, like we said. So no, I don't have a strategy for that. I think something I've really noticed is, obviously people are quite have a kind of a short recollection. So now people see me and they're like, oh my God, like, you're so authentic. You really don't give a shit what people think. Look how you dress, look how you look. That's actually really only a recent event. That's actually not a long-term event. That's actually recent, but the reason why is because I've turned up and been like, that wasn't right. Or I've gone to networking events. I remember even like last year, I'd go to networking events and I'd honestly dress. I'd be like, all the other girls wear these, like, all the other girls dress like this. I'm going to copy them and dress like this. I'd look like I'd borrowed my dad's suit or something. It just wasn't me. But I wasn't sure really who I was, and that's that's a really deep thing to work out. And
with networking, do you find when you're dressed how you want, you're so much more comfortable with conversation flows? When I feel good, like I mean, I always wear a suit and stuff anyway, but that's just the nature of the business. But if I feel good, I work better. And so if dressing up for you doesn't make you feel good, it works the opposite, right? In that you're not being yourself. It's very, very difficult to dress fake, act real. So if you look how you want to look, then it makes it much easier to get yourself across.
Yeah, and obviously some people, and I've been there and I've done it, putting on a suit gives them that power suit thing, right? But for me, I think what I really sat into was feeling powerful. Not, I don't mean, not from a power trip, but feeling inner power.
Yeah.
Feeling good about myself without necessarily being like I had to put on a suit to do that. I've really done a lot of work to feel that internally. But don't get me wrong, I've turned up to events dressed like me, and all of a sudden I walk in the room and all the girls are in like, these beautiful dresses, stiletto heels, and I'm like, oh, like I want the earth to kind of swallow me up a little bit.
Does that still bother you or not? Are you
now not? No, not now, not really. But up until like 3 months ago, yeah, massively. And I said I wasn't doing this. It was only last year I still was dressing like I'd honestly copy what the other girls were wearing. But I'd be like a Shein like a Wish version of them. I wasn't there. I'm not them. I am me. And don't get me wrong, like if I do want to wear dress and heels, I can kill it. But my dress and heels will look a bit more like maybe a bit more rocky, maybe a bit more out there. And that's just what I like to do. And I think even like.
Mine is the opposite, in the sense that when I started working in the city, I was conscious that I had to be in a nice suit because people would know it's not. And I always felt if I buy new clothes, I'd go and smash BD. which is strange, isn't it? Because it's like the opposite. I mean, it's difficult because I don't have like a dress sense as such. I'm a man. I wear t-shirts, shorts when I'm at home. But it's the other side for me. Like it's like the suit. It's like the like your outfit. You know, it's like fancy dress. You're playing at something that you're probably maybe because I haven't come from that background. You know, so maybe that's the insecurity. But you're like, I'm dressed like it now. I can act like it.
I think
So
also it's definitely linked to because that's what people think. So I found, and I still find, not so much now because my reputation precedes me, but I would go to events and I would find that people wouldn't give me the time of day because I didn't look.
really?
And even when I did wear dresses, and these are industry events, like even when I did wear dresses, maybe I wasn't wearing. I've never worn designer stuff, like never. I'm just not that kind of person. I just don't care, right? So which was also really funny when I moved to Sandbanks and all that, because again, that wasn't me. I'm a very like, it didn't make sense. None of it made sense. None of it made sense at all. I'm a very like, as a child, I'd be like in the mud picking up worms, jumping off the trees. None of that made sense. But I found that when I was going to events, either dressed in dresses, but they were non-designer, or I was dressed how I dress now, people wouldn't talk to me as much. It was really noticeable, and there was a part of me that that was a difficult thing to sit in, because at the time I'd look around at the room and, again, to be entirely honest, I'd look around and be like, my business is probably doing tenfold what any of your businesses are doing, but none of you give me the fucking time of day because I don't look like I'm wealthy. I don't look like I'm successful.
Do you think some of it's in your head, though? And the only reason I say that is like, because I probably dress the same all the time. If I go to like an investment bank, the difference between like my broker, specialist lender, and then go somewhere with investment bankers, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't think people are talking to me as much. But then I'm like, are they not? Or am I conscious of the fact I looked it, or I'm not? They can tell I'm not from the same background as them.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? I don't. I think some of it's in, especially for me. I can't speak for you, but I think some of it's in my head.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think you're spot on. I think it's both. So I think at the time, I hadn't stepped into understanding that I was worthy, and that I am doing good things. I have got a good business. So there was that. I was still like the trying to prove myself, maybe, even though my business was doing really well. Even that, so there was part of that, like the girl that needs to prove herself. There's part.
You can't walk around with your net profit wrapped around your neck, can you?
Yeah,
people only see what they're going like.
Right?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I'm doing okay. But then there was genuinely also the part of it that I just know. Like, I just almost sat and I watched and I'd observe, and I think that was there's both, definitely. And I felt also, but then you're quite right that now that I'm really comfortable with my worth, that's actually not linked to money or ILA, but also that my business is doing, that it's doing well. I'm really comfortable with that. So now I actually couldn't give a flying fuck whether you talk to me. Whereas before I think I cared. I wanted them to talk to me.
Now it kind of attracts people.
And ironically, it attracts people. Ironically, everyone wants to talk to me. But then also, is it now because, I don't know, because my reputation now precedes me? I don't know what it is. But I did notice it at some point.
Never know.
I don't know. Or maybe also sometimes I think when you're just authentically you. So I think when I turn up to the event, maybe not dressed, maybe dressed like a Wish version of everybody else, as said. People
that makes you uncomfortable, right? So if you're slightly more uncomfortable in that environment, then you're not going to be as good at like the relationship and stuff in the room. So
people can sense that. So maybe they're like, you look like you maybe look like you're faking it or not right. Whereas now I could probably walk in a room like this, and maybe people be like, oh, what's that about? Some people do just ignore me. But some people will ignore me because I'm not their cup of tea. They want to talk to suities. That's also fine. Does
that still happen to you in financial services? Because obviously, I think we're still a bit of an old boys club. We all know that. Like it's going on leaps and bounds, especially the last few years. But still a long way to go. Do you think it's still a thing? Even being not just dressing differently, but being female, or you're up against boys who all went to the same schools and stuff.
Yeah, I think it depends where I am. So if I'm at like industry events where like our lot are at, then no, everybody knows who I am. If I'm at, I went to a couple of events in MIPIM where I think I was in like a tutu skirt and like high knee, like military boots, and as I walked in, it was a very corporate event, and I did think I did then feel like people weren't interested in talking to me. But then again, is that me projecting out? I don't know. I do sometimes find
a lot of these boys are indoctrinated into white shirt, blue suit, because that's what we wear. So they see it. They were told that. I remember when you first go, like the no brown in town thing, and then people where you weren't allowed to wear brown shoes. But I just believed that forever.
Yeah.
because someone said it, like someone who was 60 said, you wear black shoes, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually, fuck, I'll wear what shoes I want.
Right. And I think there probably is still a mindset around maybe some of the older boys who, a young girl covered in tattoos in a tutu skirt probably think, oh God, she must work at OnlyFans or something. They don't even get it. You're like, what's she
That's
here
not
for?
parts of their coat. You're like, I'm a lawyer, mate.
Right. So, but then I also quite like the shock factor when I'm like, I'm a lawyer, and they're like, what? So I actually just, by the way, I'm joking. If anyone knows my sense of humor, I discredit myself when I say she must work at OnlyFans. Dress how you want to dress. I'm really like if anyone who's like, well, I'm saying just out there, anyone who knows me knows that I just say things a bit outrageous. But I think there's still a bit of a category like that. But then also they're not people that I want to work with. And to answer the question about have I felt a difference of being a female? I think, look, I personally, there's a bit of both. As in, like, I actually used it to my advantage that that I'm a female who's a lawyer who looks different, acts different, speaks up, and people are like, whoa, what's that? And I used it in that way. It's not a conscious thing. As in, I just think it was, like you said, it set me apart. So actually, I found it helpful to not be another bloke who's just decided he's a lawyer and he's going to do some ILAs. No.
Yeah.
Then obviously,
is it actually on that? Oh, because so I don't forget to ask. Has anyone copied you yet? Because if you were the first, has it happened?
Yeah, let's say it here louder. We're the first, babies. So not full service. Not a law firm that's just as ILA. We've never had another person do that yet.
Okay.
They're usually full service law firms who create a landing page. We had somebody that anybody who wants to know, ILA with a little I, big L and big A is copywritten. We've trademarked it, so you cannot do your logo in that style. But we had someone who did that, and then we just sent them a cease and desist letter, a breach of infringement rights, and they immediately took the whole thing down. So, but I am getting whispers of other lawyers that I'm hearing through my various friends in the industry going, oh, you're Anastasia, and they're trying to get info, and then they're going to try and copy. Which also, I just also don't really mind.
It's a compliment in the sense that you're the first one to do it, but it's fucking hard to catch you up once you're the first.
Right, but I'm not. I don't run my business like a law firm. As in, I don't think like a lawyer. As in, I don't think. A lot of lawyers just sit around expecting work to come to them and are just entitled. I'm not. I run it like a business. I'm very aware of our competitors. I'm very aware that if I don't treat people correctly, don't work with my introducers, don't keep myself out there, someone could come in and they're hungry. They've got hope, right? I'm just on the defense now. I'm just defending first place. There's people who come in, they're hungry, they'll scale it. But also, the biggest thing with ILA, when we launched it, people laughed at me. They were like, you cannot make a law firm that just does ILA and you can't make it profitable. We operate at about a 40 to 60% profit margin. Most law firms operate at a 10% profit margin.
If you can get to 20, you're a genius.
So the reason why is because we use tech and we use AI and we use systems, and there's all these different things behind the scenes that talk to each other. Now, the fact that most lawyers, when I launched it, laughed at me and said it would never work, it couldn't be profitable. One of our base fee is £250 plus VAT. We do it en masse. The reason why I think that would have been a thing for them is they don't understand. They're not thinking how I'm thinking about systems and processes.
They think billable hours, don't they? Because they still live in the law world.
So for them to get it off the ground, they're going to have to replicate or do better my systems and processes, which they could. And I said I don't mind.
It's interesting you talk about systems and processes, by the way, Anastasia. Sorry, I keep quiet it. The only reason is because I forget it if I say it.
No,
but because you talk about like being chaotic and you're everywhere, natural personality. You've got a really fucking well-run business, right? And you've got systems and processes in place and tech and stuff. So I think not that you dumb yourself down, but you know what I mean? Like there's loads more that goes into that business than just like a lovely lady with a good personality. There's so much more in depth than you do. You have to show people systems and processes. You just have to know that the business is good. But I just kind of wanted to get that across because it's a very well thought out business with lots of stuff going on in the background, isn't it? It's not just like had an idea and now it works.
Spot on. No, you're quite right. As in what I think, when I hyper focus on something, I'm exceptional at it. So when we launched ILA, every single system and process you see, I built from the ground. So what I did was like, okay, well, what would I want? If I was a client, do what really gets on my goat when I want to book a doctor's surgery, that I've got to call someone, speak to someone, they've got to check a calendar, or like lawyers, you've got to call receptionist, you've got to check with Bob if Bob's available, then you've got to speak to his PA. Like, why are we doing that? Why is that so annoying? I actually just put myself in my client's shoes, right? And was like, what would I like? I'd like a button that I press that says book now. And when it presses book now, in order to scale this business, we need it to connect to a pool of consultants, right? So what CRM or system do I need to read all these consultants' diaries? Bearing in mind they're consultants elsewhere, so it's feeding through. There's so much behind it, yes. And I always, when I mentor businesses, what I say is don't go out to the market and have a look about, you know, what systems are already out there. What I want you to do is visualize what your business will do. It needs to do this, this, and this, and then we will go find the thing that does it. And then we might need to hack the background parts to, like, I've got various different hacks where things are auto-forwarded that don't quite work. I pushed here. So yes, I am. When I say I'm chaotic in nature, as in like, if I'm not hyper-focused on something, I might be. You know, I'll lose my phone is all the time. I'm always losing my phone. I'm always losing stuff. I'm always late for appointments. I mean, I was here early on time. I don't know how. I'm always late. I know, right?
I was so surprised. I was walked off and I came back and you were there. And I was like,
I know, she's here. But that aside, I'm very, very, very good at processes, systems, how things are operating. Everything when we launched it.
Right, you've done it from the right mindset of looking at the candidate's my side, the client journey. You know, you've actually gone, what do they need, rather than, oh, this will be cool, or this works. Like, I don't know if enough businesses look at, or I don't know if enough businesses follow their processes through as a client. I think that's really important, because then you're like, oh, we did it the other day. We were going through the candidate journey, and I was like, did anyone notice that this bit is fucked? Like, they can't click on this, and that's what's stopping people from going through to this. But we don't check it enough. I think it's really important to look at going, right, let's make sure we know the journey, make sure it's comfortable, make sure it's the least effort as possible for someone. And we'll work in the background to make that effortless.
Yeah, and I just think, like, it's like barriers to entrance. Like, because I'm chaotic and because I get bored of things quickly, if I got to go and book something and I'm like bored now, I just won't do it. So I just built it so everything, there was nothing stopping clients from booking. It was so easy. It is so easy. And then what I did is, from the outset, I processed everything. Everything's in a document. Everything's on a video. So when I scale the team, when someone starts, I can give them video guides on how to do everything in this business. I could blow up tomorrow and you could step in and be the CEO of ILA. Like, and anybody who's a business owner, you need your business like that. And again, people said to me, Anastasia, where did you, like, that's, you know, what people recommend doing when you're scaling or selling and da-da-da. What made you think to do that? And I was like, isn't it obvious? Like, well, I don't want it to be the oracle. It's so obvious that this whole business needs to be set up. There isn't a single process that you can't see at ILA if you came into the business. But like I said, I just go into a hyper-focus mode, create all these things, systemize it, process it, and then I'll swan off and do something, you know, a bit wild, a bit chaotic, and then I'll come back. And it's
I'm very jealous, by the way, of when we talk. Jealous, is that the right word? I don't mind using the word jealous, because I think it's inspiring to be jealous of someone. But just that I've built a business that doesn't work without me at the moment, because obviously I do all the business development. And I think you've also, when you touched on something earlier on about your success not being attached to your business, I'm acutely aware that my mood and feeling and the feeling of success is directly attached to it. So I love the fact that you pulled those bits apart as well. You separated yourself quite well, which is tough when you start out. You start as one-man band, so it naturally grows like that. So you've thought about that early on, which I don't think a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think I just like, you know, Isla's my baby. It's my everything. You know, I think I am emotionally attached to it, but I try to detach slightly. I am an entrepreneur. And if you're an entrepreneur, you've got to be able to, you know, scale it, grow it. It might blow up. You might sell it. Like, and you can't. I just don't think my worth with. And it does actually
You used my one bugbear phrase then of "it's my baby." So I would say to people, you would never sell your baby.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I had to detach myself from it, because you're right. You then end up in a situation where you take everything really personally. You won't sell it. You won't scale it. And I just don't think
as well, right? You do take things personally. I did. Even when it came to people leaving the business, I was like, why? I didn't understand why you would. Oh, you know, you stole some information from me. I feel like that's a theft to me. But as you go along, you do manage to detach yourself emotionally a bit like that.
Exactly. So I should probably caveat it as in it first appeared or felt like it was my baby. And then I was like, this isn't right. You're right. And then, went to that mindset where it's like, you don't sell your baby. So I think I was just like, I don't want to be in that situation. Plus, I think, but then I also think you can still not be like, you still don't have to be like, it's my baby in order to provide a great customer service. I provide a good customer service and I want the best for the business and our clients because I want to be good at business. You don't have to
You still
be.
love your business, can't you? It's
Yeah.
just like, and I'm hypocritical when I say it, not being emotionally attached, because, like I said, my success is directly linked to the emotional roller coaster of the business.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, especially people listening. I think it's important to try as much as you can to detach yourself from it, because
Yeah.
it's tough enough when you're not emotionally attached. Do you know what I mean? Business is hard, isn't it? So
Oh, for sure, for sure. And
to
there's a
have it
lot.
as a core part of you is tough.
Yeah, there's so many factors to it, and I don't always get that right necessarily, but I think having it in place where you've got structured processes to get out of your own way, which by the way has taken me, since my team, they wouldn't always say that was the case. I'm not sitting here being
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh, I nailed it. Absolutely not. To let certain things go, to get out your own way, to have systems and processes, data. We've now got a database, I think is now approaching 17,000 or 15,000. We've probably got
Wow.
the biggest database in the property industry, which,
Yeah.
anyone listening, I'm really keen to be not saying using that in a bad way, but like, what we doing with these people? This is a massive database of people that we
Yeah,
can get to, that we can work with, that we can
yeah.
offer a service to, that we can do something. So, I'm very open to that as well. And open to then collaborations and how you work with people. 'Cause I think that's important. And collaborations, I'll often get, I'll get calls from brokers like, Anastasia, will you pay me a tenner for referring you an ILA or whatever? And I'm like, we don't do that, by the way. If anyone listening, don't
Yeah,
bother
yeah, yeah.
asking me. We do things like partnerships, like promoting you, like getting you out to our database, like providing an excellent service. So like, I'm really big on like actual
Did that
relationships
take
and
a lot to go?
connections.
Sorry, I've taken you way over how long we would, but I'll keep asking questions.
No,
But
go.
did that take you long to get over that? Because people do, solicitor referrals are a thing as part of brokers want to get paid for every little bit of the introduction they do. Was that a hurdle, or was it just like, look, we've never done it, we don't do it, we're doing the best thing for your customer. You're probably already getting a fee from one lawyer. That's enough.
Yeah, do you know what? I've just always stuck with it. Like we did do a thing for a little while where like you could add on, because we'd give your client 10% discount as part of the partnership, and then you could add on like a £25 packaging fee that we'd collect. But only like
Oh,
two
okay.
brokers wanted to do that. No one really wanted
Yeah.
to do it, and it was a pain in the ass to, because we have to then disclose it obviously and all this, and it was just a pain in the ass. So we stopped doing that. I mean, I do have some conversations where they'll call me being like, ILA is such a problem. I can't get ILA anywhere. This is holding up all my deals. So basically, you can't complete unless you get ILA, so you're not getting your
Losing
money,
money.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
And they'll go to me, but what are you going to pay me? I said, well, we don't. The reason why is because we do partnership events. We really try and
Yeah, yeah.
promote you in front of people. So we try and elevate your brand in that way, and also then we provide an excellent service. And they
And also
wondered,
your fucking deal will complete.
one of them kept going on it. He's like, I don't understand, Anastasia. Why would I send you the work? And I literally, to be honest, just went, you called me telling me you can't complete your deals because I don't, the maths
Yeah.
isn't mathsing right
The
now.
reason you called, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let me just remind you of that, but you're welcome to go and find somebody else. I think that's why you called me. So yeah, I mean, again, you work with who is the right person to work with. I don't disagree that like financial remuneration is, I think it's great in the industry for certain things. We
Yeah.
are, however, an independent law firm. That's part of our thing. So a lot of lenders really want us to be like, for their own kind of, I guess, compliance or background
Yeah, yeah.
reassurance is for us to fully be
Yeah.
independent. Our job is to support the property developer. I'm not here to be paid off or pay anybody else, so that's really
Yeah, yeah.
important.
Yeah, oh, nice, good. That I've like I said, I've taken you way over, but I could honestly, it's been quite therapeutic as well, talking about the what success is attached to. It's given me a lot to think about. But so I'll finish with if you can give one bit of advice to anyone who's setting up or looking to set up, not competitor, just a business owner, what would it be? What would be the one bit of advice that you could give that you think would set them on their way?
Okay, so something else I work with, or I actually another business called Fuck Yes Founders. And the reason why it's called Fuck Yes Founders is you need to embody and step into your fuck yes energy. So you might want to put a lot of beepers on this podcast. I'm really sorry if anyone listening.
No beeps.
Um,
No one
and
watches it. It's fine.
I hope so. I want one person.
They
Maybe
do.
my
They
mum. Maybe
do.
my mum will watch it.
Yeah, no. My
But
mum will.
really, really embodying and stepping into your power. To do that, you need to start doing that somatic movement. You need to get into yourself, like not just it's not all up here, not all in your head. You've got to step into your body and really back yourself. And we do that through various somatic practices and like, embody. When I say embodying, I mean, yeah, like practicing what it feels like to be like, fuck yes, stand
Yeah, yeah,
tall, embody that. That's your biggest thing. That for me has been the biggest root of my success. And success doesn't have to be money, by the way. We've just been through all of that. Success
yeah,
can be
yeah.
embodying what things mean to you and your own
Feels
fuck yes energy.
Yeah. Do you know what? I had a business coach. I keep talking because every time I'm going to say stop. I had a business coach. She was the biggest influence on my. Well, there were three of them, and I've never been like a spiritual person at all. But they are very. Well, I always say one was like my headmistress, one was my yoga teacher, one was my business coach, and because they were all very spiritual. But that's what we used to do. She would say you have to sit and feel what it feels like how winning makes you feel, or how success makes you feel. And once you feel it, you can really push on.
Yeah, and
But
that's how you block the noise out. Anastasia, how do you not listen to what everybody else thinks? Anastasia, how did you ignore all the lawyers who told you it would never work? By embodying my own fuck yes energy, because if you get caught up in what anybody else is saying, you won't take that leap. You won't launch that business. The systems and the processes come secondary. What comes first is you knowing yourself, knowing what your vision is, and not listening to everybody else's version of success. I did that for a while, not listening to what they tell you can and
yeah,
can't do, listening to what you can do.
amazing. Lovely. That's a great way to end it. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. If anyone wants to get hold of you, Anastasia, what's the best way of speaking to you? Just about any of this. If anyone wants to catch up, whether that be about your business mentoring or the ILA side of business, what's the best way to speak to you?
So ILA, as we know from the domain name, is www.ila.co.uk. You can book now appointments. You can actually schedule a one-to-one with me on there as well. Like if you want to partner with ILA, if you're a broker or solicitor listening to this, property developers, you can book now on the website. So on there, if you are interested in any of the somatic work I've spoken about or the business strategy work, I have a mentoring company. Also, I do keynote speaking on this fuck yes energy, and that's www.fyesfounders.co.uk. Head over there and we can chat.
Domain name for that one.
What's that, sorry?
You can get the fuck yes domain name for that one.
Oh, well, I was going to do fuck yes. I didn't know if Google would be angry about that, so I went for FES.
Good. Thank you. I really appreciate your time today, and hopefully that has. It's very different from a lot of the financial services ones we have on, so it's always useful. So I hope people get a lot from it. But I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on, Anastasia.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.